our second parallel event today on NGO CSW 66 Forum. Today we have the topic of challenges of gender equality in leadership and economic power. Before the session start, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, you are welcome to leave your questions in the chat box. And we also will communicate with our speakers and moderators if there's any important messages in the chat box. Okay, in 1 minute, we will start our session.
Good morning, President Suzanne. Miss Verislam, you want to test your microphone? We cannot hear you.
Good afternoon here in Hawaii. Great to see you all.
Do you have your microphone?
Yes, can you hear me? You cannot hear me?
Volume is very low. Is that okay?
Okay, let me see. Volume is low.
Can you turn up the volume a bit?
Let me see if I can turn it
Oh,
up.
that's better.
Is that better?
Yes. A little bit
Better?
more would be nice.
Maybe I need to come closer is what it is.
Okay, good. Thank you for squeezing out your time from your busy schedule for today's forum. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's great to join you across the ocean.
Hello, everyone again. This is Annie from the Asia-Pacific Liberal Women Association. We welcome you to our second parallel event in NGO CSW 66 Forum. Today, we have our topic on challenges of gender equality in leadership and economic power. And to start the session, we are very welcome our President of International Network of Liberal Women, Jayanti. Dr. Jayanti, can you give us a warm welcome remarks? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Yes, Jayanti, we can hear you well.
It's just that I think my internet is lagging a bit. Okay, good. It's lagging a bit, so you must excuse me. It's beyond my control. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and greetings from our part of the globe to yours. This is indeed a beautiful morning to be gathered amongst such enthusiastic and distinguished panelists and moderator. A great thank you to participants who have logged in to this forum, Challenges of Gender Equality in Leadership and Economic Power, a parallel event in this CSW 66, an event co-organized by the Asia-Pacific Liberal Women Association together with the International Liberal Network of Liberal Women. Ladies and gentlemen, before I go further, the INLW condemns the horrendous assault on Ukraine and the ongoing attacks the past 3 weeks on innocent people. Our prayers for courage and strength to the Ukraine people, especially to the women, girls, children, and the vulnerable group. Ladies and gentlemen, in this forum and many conventions, conferences held across the globe the past decades have all called for the recognition of women's roles and their rights, their involvement, their inclusion, and their insights in issues not only concerning them, but on issues across the board. Nothing, and I repeat, nothing, is not an issue related to women and their everyday life, doing ordinary things in extraordinary ways. Ladies and gentlemen, take a woman's life in a day, and as she wakes up and dawns on the numerous hats, she is a daughter, She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a career woman, she's a caregiver, she's a mentor, and many more. Which area is she not capable of handling? Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, we are still struggling. We are still trying to smash the glass ceiling that we all thought we had already smashed. But the challenges continue. In Asia, we have less than 18% of women in parliament in Malaysia alone. Only less than 18%. Our voices are not heard. The issues that we want to challenge is not given as much attention as it should be. And I think in many other parts of the world as well, likewise in Asia, we have this stereotype assumption that we still have to shatter. We women have to don so many hats, and we have to ensure that we do well in each and every role that we play. Our tasks and our challenges are double, if not triple, the efforts that men need to put in. And having said that, and I think we are going to hear from so many of you, our challenges are not something that we can see resolved in a day or two. We'll still have to struggle. We'll still have to get our voices together. We still need to ensure that our voices are strong together and ensure that we continue our march on for our tomorrows, for our women, for tomorrow, and to ensure that we can actually move on. For example, today's topic on gender equality, together with economic powers. I'm quite sure we'll hear from the distinguished speakers on how all these things and these issues can be overcome, what are the steps needed, how much involvement we need. And having said that as well, I also want to ensure here, or rather share this with you, that aside from us crying out that men need to be involved to ensure that there is gender equality,
It seems like Jayanti's internet is lagging. Okay, I would like to take this moment. Let's pray
can you hear me?
for less. Okay, she's back. Okay.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
It was
Where
lagging, but you're back
did
now.
you lose me?
Yes, for a moment, but it's okay.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. So I think as far as, I don't know where I left off, but I think without disrupting the momentum of this forum, I thank each and every one of you and each and every one of these distinguished panelists gathered today so that we can have more insights. We can actually try to move forward. And I think what is most important is we together as women, we have to move forward together with our voices heard together so that it is louder. And I'm very convinced and I'm sure that as you women share this forum with me, you and I know very well that the way forward is us as women. Thank you very much and all the best for today's forum.
Thank you, our President Jayanti. She is also an attorney, president of the International INLW, and also serving as the chair of the Council of the Asian Liberal and Democratic Women's Caucus. Since our president mentioned about the war between Ukraine and Russia, I would like to spend 30 minutes. Let's pray for the peace in Ukraine and the rest of the world, including the cross-strait. Let's pray. Sorry, I forgot my microphone. As we know, when the war happened, who suffer most besides soldiers in the front line? The women and the children suffer most. We wish the peace remain. Okay, let's start today's forum. Good day, everyone, because we're in different time zones, so there's no morning or night event involved. So good day to everyone. A warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for being up for today's forum. My name is Josephine Wu Vostik. I serve on both International Liberal Women and APLWA board. As this year's UN AGO CSW 66 panel forum organizer for both INLW and APLWA, it's truly my honor and privilege to learn through the whole process from all our distinguished speakers with their very insightful presentations. Yesterday, we concluded a great forum focused on climate justice, and we're now hosting another forum to look into the challenges of gender equality in leadership and economic power. We are very grateful to invite four very outstanding ladies who are in the leading roles in different paths to achieve their career, but must have been through lots of challenges and difficulties to overcome. I'm very honored to be today's moderator and proud to introduce these distinguished speakers to you. From Hawaii, firstly, I would like to introduce President Susan Huanali Versailles. She took office as president of the East-West Center in January 2022. She's the first woman, native Hawaiian and Hawaii resident to be chosen for this role in the organization's over 50-year history. What a benchmark and milestone. She spent 5 years advising senior U.S. officials at the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, where she maintained key relationships with nations around the Indo-Pacific region. After retiring as Major General with 34 years of military service, she formed a consulting company to provide regional advice to decision makers. She's a very talented keynote speaker and long-term advocate on Indo-Pacific issues. We feel very lucky to have you join us today. From Thailand, Ms. Suripanam Intavichan. She currently serves as assistant to the former Thai Prime Minister and Democrat Party leader Chan Lee-pai. She's also the Business Development Director of Srinacom Company in Thailand. She was also elected as a Global Shaper at the Bangkok Hub of the Global Shapers community. From Taiwan, Jia Tianxu. She's currently Director of the Department of Women's Affairs for the Democratic Progressive Party of Taiwan. Where is Taiwan's current ruling party? Jia Tian has been working as an advocate for women's rights with the NGOs for a long time before her current job. From another lady, which is very young, from Taiwan's NGO, a young but very determined advocate, Xuanru Wang. She is also an environmental activist and Open Government National Action Plan Task Force member. Originally from Hsinchu, Taiwan, Xuanru Wang initiated a proposal in 2017 called Phasing Out the Use of Disposable Tableware, which caught the attention of the government at the age of 17. Now, she is a junior in the Department of Interior Design as a runway model, as well through serving in the Taiwan government's Open Government National Action Plan Task Force. Her goal is to use her diverse skills and experiences to inspire the world to strike a balance between nature and humanity. This is true to prove one person can change the world. Okay, you can tell from all the introductions, we have very good speaker today. Now we would like to start with President Verizon. First, you ready? Thank you. You need to turn on your microphone, please. Yeah.
Aloha, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Wonderful to see you all. Great. Thank you, Thomas, with that thumbs up. I do have a few slides, and I'll be brief since we have so great list of distinguished speakers. A warm greeting from beautiful Manoa at the East-West Center here in Honolulu, Hawaii. If we could put up that first slide, which shows the green here of the East-West Center. You can see the group of fellows that are there. And I'd like to note there that really what you see is 50% women and 50% men, which is really a representation of the world, made up of half men and half women. So we try to achieve that. You can see there also has the mission of the East-West Center, really to promote better relations and understanding among people and nations. And people include women. So I just want to point that out. And through cooperative study, fellowships, research, and dialogue. So I've been here all of 10 weeks, and I'm really proud to be here, taking over after President Richard Volstead and building upon the great work that he's done. But as was mentioned, I am the first female since its beginning in 1960. If we can go to the next slide. So in 1960, the East-West Center was designed really to build those people-to-people relationships. I don't know how, can I advance the slides, or can someone advance the next slide for me, please? I don't know if that's going to, perfect. So you can see the old black and white 1960. So for 62 years, they've never had a female president. So to the point of women in leadership. But you know, the legacy really was for all men and women to be able to come to the table. And it has changed over time because, as we know, where there are decisions made, women need to be present, but that's not always the case. But the vision of those leaders who were mostly men in our US Congress to have the place, like you see that Inman Center, that beautiful Japanese garden off to the right, below the picture of our late Senator David K. Inouye, who's done amazing things to perpetuate peace. And that bottom left is actually when I'm still in uniform, presenting here at the East-West Center on Women, Peace, and Security issues. But again, coming out of a very challenging time, this center was built. Next slide, please. It was built really to also make a commitment to the region through cross-cultural education, and that means including women as well, developing leaders, women leaders. We have wonderful programs that I'm going to show you in a minute of the many leadership programs here at the East-West Center. Also providing, convening, coming together to provide solutions and informing policy changes that need to happen. Next slide, please. But I wanted to share a little bit, I'm sure that you're wondering a little bit about my background. There's a picture there. As was mentioned, I just retired last year after 34 years serving in the military. And as you know, when we talk about women in leadership, there are maybe 10% general officers in the United States military, which is actually better than the rest of the world, I would say. It seems an unusual thing to have a 2-star major general, but it has really changed and shifted. And I'm proud to say that today, this week, was the first female Mongolian general officer. So I'm happy to say that. That picture you see there right below Hawaii is the home of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, where I serve. And just to give you an idea, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command is, I don't know if someone's, I hear that back, but anyway, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command is really the headquarters of all U.S. forces from the California coast to the west coast of India. Its commander, who's standing there in the picture with me in the middle, was Admiral Davidson while I was there. And it is really having oversight of the 380,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who serve with 36 nations, 14 time zones. So you can see the level of responsibility is pretty great. But I can tell you that when I was a young girl, I would never have imagined that I would have been in this leadership position, being an acting deputy commander of a command that had such a great responsibility for the United States. But it really took mentors, and as you can see, all of the top leaders at Indo-Pacific Command in that picture were all men, except for me. And it was their mentorship and leadership, because really all of my leaders and bosses were men, that provided opportunities for someone who didn't look like them, but was able to see beyond gender, but able to see talent and capability. So I just wanted to share that as we're thinking about women leaders and gender equality. Next slide, please. So at the Indo-Pacific Command and even the East-West Center deals with a lot of the regional challenges that we face, whether it is rising competition with the PRC, the actions of the Eastern Military District of Russia, and of course, we're feeling the impacts of Ukraine today. Climate change, more natural disasters that occur in this region than any other place. And what happens as a result of these challenges, next slide, please, is often that, well, like it was mentioned, those who are victims of conflict and crisis more than anyone else are women and children and girls. And they are impacted in many ways. You know, we know that the UN research shows that those countries in which girls and women have access to education, food security, water security, good health care, access to a seat at the table, economic opportunities, those countries thrive. You know, all of these challenges that I mentioned earlier create challenges significantly higher for women in the region. And we collectively, having this discussion today, acknowledge that there are ways in which we can work together to create opportunities and change for women in the region. Next slide, please. So I know for a fact, so some of those things, of course, deal with addressing it through, seminars like this one. We have the Gals with Lay and the Women's Changing Faces here at the East-West Center. But I want to mention, when we fail to look at adding women to decision-making at the table, we miss out on solutions from 50% of the world. The picture in the bottom right is when I was deployed to Iraq as part of the Joint Intelligence Center. And I show this picture because when we went to the Middle East, not considering the role of women in the Middle East in a Muslim country, oftentimes we didn't think about that you have to have women on the security end to actually reach out to other members. I'm getting feedback. I don't know if Ho-An Wang, if you don't mind muting your I see you're coming through. Thank you so much. Anyway, so I wanted to mention that you see these girls came up to me once they realized I was a female, because oftentimes those who reach out are men. Those who did security missions, those who are on UN missions are men. But because of the fact that I was a female, I had access. So considering the environment we're in, we often don't think about that. And as we're looking at Ukraine today, even considerations of what's happening with women and children as they are becoming refugees. So what is it going to take? Next slide, please. Very quickly, it's going to take leadership. It's going to take events like this, not just talking about it, but trying to find actionable solutions. And those solutions, next slide, please. I guess it's not changing. So I'll just go on. leadership. Okay, there we go. Leadership. You can see that there are some larger bodies on the bottom left. You see in Mongolia when I was there, bringing women together to find actionable solutions for Mongolia. The center larger picture is in Malaysia, where they convened a women and insecurity to talk about actionable solutions. And on the top left is the rim of the Pacific. And that is one picture you'll see equal amount of men, because this issue of women in leadership is not simply a women's issue. It's a human issue. It's all of our issue, and men need to be part of the dialogue. So I appreciate the men who are part of this dialogue today. I think it's important. Next slide, please, because I really believe that it needs to be inclusive. You can see that top left. I attended last year the Pacific Air Force's Women, Peace and Security Symposium. You can see the different uniforms in the background actually represented women from across this region, from all of the different countries who are leaders and figuring out ways in which to solve those problems. But from an East-West center place, bringing their culture and experiences, because we also have to look at including gender issues from a cultural lens, because they differ nation to nation. All of our cultures are very different, and those need to be included. Next slide, please. Also, you know, it has to be intentional. There has to be policies put in place, decisions that are made. These pictures, again, Malaysia, Mongolia, Bangladesh. The intentional outreach. Every time I went to a different country while I was still in uniform, there was an intentional decision to reach out to different women, an intentional decision to talk with male leaders about the role of women in leadership in many of their militaries. And they were very proud to showcase the women leaders who are brilliant, who have contributed to a lot of their UN peacekeeping operations around the globe. Very important. Next slide, please. Also, next slide. Let's see. It needs to be actionable. That top right corner in the Philippines, where, you know, Marari, the ISIS in the Philippines, in Marari, that fight pretty much decimated a lot of Marari. And there were many refugees there, and many of them women and children. What the Philippines government did was send a whole battalion of women, Muslim women, to attend to the needs of the displaced women and children, and really addressing the societal needs. And that's actionable. Actually bringing together, you can see on the bottom, having women at the table to discuss actual solutions for security cooperation, or also enhancing education on the bottom right. Next slide, please. Okay, I don't see I lost our, oh, there we go. Also education and training, you know, investing in that education and training, so critical. You see a picture there of the East-West Center in different forms. One is a gender advisor course we had, an exchange. You know, also education and training in media and how we report on these things, very important for leadership. Next slide. So here, I'm just going to flip through some of these things, some of the things that are coming up. Just yesterday, we had Women of the Wave highlighting senior women leaders. The governor of Guam, who for the United States, that's where America's Day begins, in Guam. And it really has been in the center of security issues and military buildup. So being a leader, a woman leader at that time, is very key. So hearing from her, hearing her voices, the voices of women in the region are critical and important. It brings us all together. Next slide. It also shows us that if you see it, you can believe it. If you know, it's hard to become what you don't see. If you don't see women in these roles, it's harder for younger girls or younger boys to imagine that these are the roles that women can play in leadership. Women in sports, we did a Gals with Lay that just featured top women in sports. And I think that is a significant entree to show the strength and capability of women. Next slide, please. Also, women in education and key research areas. We've been able to highlight here at the East-West Center some of the most complex problems on security, you know, hydropower and the Mekong River Basin, environmental issues. Next slide, please. As well as highlighting not just regional issues here, but around the world, and also supporting programs that help women entrepreneurs. And we have some of that with Changing Faces here at the East West Center. So I know I've taken up a lot of time. Next slide, please. I just want to say in Hawaiian, we say mahalo nui loa, which means a heartfelt thank you. This was a changing from Dr. Richard Volsteck to me, the leadership. We had a change of responsibility, a change of leadership, and we wanted to acknowledge that. But with that, thank you so much for allowing me to present. I'm honored to be here with all of you. Aloha.
Thank you, Suzanne. We truly appreciate your presentation. That shows there was a long way to try all your best to achieve to today your leadership. Thank you very much for your presentation. We also hope that your career path and your role model could be the young generation, younger girls' role model as well. So next, we would like to have, we would like to have our guest from Thailand, Mrs. Sripa. Are you ready?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, please go ahead. Microphone is yours. Thank you.
If you could also share my slide. Hello, Josephine.
Yes, we're getting ready to show your slide.
Okay, sure. I will just begin.
We will open the Q&A later. If the audience or participants, you have a question, you can type in the chat room. So we will have our distinguished speaker to answer the questions later. Okay, good. The PowerPoint is ready. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, the Asia Pacific Liberal Women Associations and internationally networked of liberal women for having me to share my perspective on gender gap, and as well to celebrate the International Women's Days this year. And as I remembered on my last talk on women gender gap years ago, that it would take about 99 years to actually close the gender gap worldwide. But as of now, according to the gender gap report by the World Economic Forum, due to the COVID-19 pandemic that continues to be felt, closing the global gender gap increased by a generation from 99 years to 135 years. And globally, the average distance completed to parity is at 68%, which is a step back compared to 2020. And these figures are mainly driven by a decline in the performance of large countries. And as a global shaper, I'm encouraged to use the data set from the World Economic Forums, as we have many speakers today with more experience that could share their experience on the challenges and how to overcome the gender gap better than me. Therefore, I like to spend my part more on updating the situations of women of the gender gap and its impact by the COVID-19 pandemic. Then we could discuss the furthermore in the Q&A sessions. And firstly, as we know that the gender gap in political empowerment still remains the largest of the 4 gap tracks, with only 22% close to date, having further widened since the 2020 by 2.4 percentage point. Across the 156 countries covered by the index, women represent only 26% of some 35,000 parliament seats and just 22.6% of over 3,400 ministers worldwide. And in 81 countries, there has never been a woman head of state. And at the current rates of progress, the World Economic Forum estimates that it will take about 145 years to attain gender parities in politics. Widening gender gap in political participations have been driven by negative trends in some large countries, which have counterbalanced progress in another 98 smaller countries. And globally, compared to last year, there are more women in parliament. And recently, Togo and Belgium have elected their first female prime minister. And women must be included in decision making that has a direct impact on their life. When they aren't, those decisions may be ineffective and even harmful. Despite women's increased engagement in public life, equality is still far off. Women account for about 45% of all civil servants, but only 34% of the decision-making positions in public administrations. One analysis of COVID-19 task force in 87 countries found that only 3.5% has gender parity. According to Women in Politics in last year, map that created by the United Nations Women and the Interparliamentary Unions, women held just 25.6% of the parliamentary seat and 21.9% of ministerial positions, and accounted for 5.9% of head of state. And women participations in local politics is somewhat higher. Data from 133 countries show that they comprises of 36% of elected members of local body. Through that is still far from parity. While progress has been made, according to the World Economic Forum's calculation, it will take about 95 years to actually close the gap in terms of political representations. Men with power often resist women with leadership in decision-making bodies, and within political parties, and enduring norms compound this challenge. Across 5 different regions, 82% of women parliamentarians report having experienced some form of psychological violence while serving their term, and nearly half, which is 44%, reported receiving death, rape, assault, and abduction threats directed at them or their family. And in order to attain equality in terms of participations in the executive, legislative, judicial, and public administration decision-making, action must be taken on the international and national commitment, including through temporary special measures. This is necessary to reduce violence against women in political life and to strengthen their voices. In countries with legislative quotas, women are on average elected to 26% of seats in parliament, compared with 21% in countries without such legislations. Political empowerment for women tend to increase in tandem with the number of women in senior roles in the labor market, and the qualities and effectiveness of policy making and policy implementation increases when power is shared. In countries with women at the helm, confirmed deaths from COVID-19 have been 6 times lower, for example, due in part of faster leadership response and greater emphasis on social and environmental well-being. And apart from the political parity gender gap, the second largest of the 4 key gaps tracked by the index is the economic participations and opportunity. According to this year's index, the result of 58% of this gap has been closed so far. The gap has been marginal improvement since the 2020. As a result, we estimate that it will take another 267 years to actually close the gap. The slow progress seen in closing the economic participations and opportunity gap is the result of the 2 opposing trends. On one hand, the proportions of women among skilled professionals continues to increase, as does progress toward wage equalities, about at slower pace. On the other hand, overall income disparities are still only pathway toward being bridged, and there is a persistent lack of women in leadership positions, with women representing just 27% of all manager positions. Additionally, the data does not yet fully reflect the impact of the pandemic, and the projections for a select number of countries show that gender gap in labor force participations are wider since the outbreak of the pandemic. And Gender gap in educational attainment and health and survival are nearly closed. In the educational attainment, 95% of this gender gap has been closed globally, with 37 countries already at parity. However, the last mile of progress is proceeding slowly. The index estimates that on its current trajectory, it will take another 14 years to completely close this gap. In health and survival, 96% of this gender gap has been closed, registering a marginal decline since last year, and the time to close this gap remains undefined. For both educational and health, while progress is higher than for economies and politics in global data, there are important future implications for disruption due to the pandemic, as well as continued variations in qualities across income, geography, race, and ethnicity. And during the COVID-19, the high frequency data for selected economy from the ILO, International Labor Organizations, LinkedIn, and Ipsos offer a timely analysis of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on gender gap in economic participations. The early projections from ILO suggest that 5% of all employed women lost their job, compared with 3.9% of employed men. LinkedIn data further show a marked decline of women hiring into leadership roles, creating a reversals of 1 to 2 years of progress across multiple industries, while industries such as software and IT service, financial service, health and healthcare, and manufacturing are countering this trend. There is more severe disruptions of overall roles in industry with higher participations of women, such as consumer sector, nonprofit, and media and communication. Additionally, Ipsos data from January 2021 shows that a longer double shift of paid and unpaid work in the context of school closures and limited availability of care service have contributed to an overall increase of stress, anxiety around job insecurities, and difficulty in maintaining work-life balance among women with children. And the COVID-19 crisis has also accelerated automations and digitalizations, speeding up the labor market disruptions. Data point to significant challenges for gender parities in the future of jobs due to increasing occupational gender segregations. Only 2 of the 8 tracks, Jobs of Tomorrow clusters, people and culture, this is information from the people and culture and content productions, have reached gender parities, while most show a severe underrepresentations of women. Gender gap are more likely in sectors that require disruptive technical skill. For example, in cloud computing, women make up 14% of the workforce in engineering and 20%, and in data and AI, 32%, while the 8 job cluster typically experience a higher influx of new talents. At current rate, those inflow do not rebalance occupational segregations, and transitioning to fields where women are currently underrepresented appear to remain difficult. And for example, the current share of women in cloud computing is 14.2%, and that figure has only improved by 0.2 percentage point, while the share of women in data and AI roles is 32.4%, and that figure has seen a mild decline of 0.1 percentage point since February 2018. Well, this report by the World Economic Forum also premiered a new measure created in collaborations with the LinkedIn Economic Graph team, which captured the difference between men's and women's livelihood to make an ambitious job switch. The indicators show that women experience a bigger gender gap in potential-based job transitions in fields where they are currently underrepresented, such as cloud computing, where the job switching gap is 58%, engineering, where the gap is at 42%, and product developments where the gap is at 19%. Through the combined effects of accelerated automations, the growing double shift and other labor market dynamics such as occupational segregations, the pandemic is likely to have a scarring effect on future economic opportunity for women and risking inferior reemployment prospect and a persistent drop in income. Gender positive recovery policies and practice can tackle those potential challenges. First, the report actually recommended the further investment into care sectors and into equitable access to care leave for men and women. Second, the policies and practices need to proactively focus on overcoming occupational segregation by gender. And third, the effective mind career reskilling policy combined with managerial practice with embedded sound, unbiased hiring and promotion practices will pave the way for a more gender equal future of work. And as you can see on the slide, we show the data and the ranking of the gender gap in the East Asia and Pacific of the top 10 countries. As of 2021, 68.9% of the overall gender gap has been closed in the East Asia and the Pacific. If the progress of the countries continue at the same pace, it will take about another 165 years to completely close the gap, almost 30 years longer than the global average. Although the region has improved its average performance the most this year, it still takes more than twice as long as Latin America and almost 3 times as long as in Western Europe to achieve the gender parity. Although roughly half of the 20 countries in the vast regions have closed at least 70% of their gender gap, there is a difference of 21.5% point between the best performer, which is New Zealand, and the lowest performer, Vanuatu. Even though the larger regional cross-country divides are found in terms of political empowerment, New Zealand, which is the best performer, has closed 63% of its gender gap, over 60% point ahead of Vanuatu and Papua New Guinea, which have not yet achieved any progress on this sub-index since the inception of the index in 2006. And on average, as you can see that if we compare to other regions, we are very much behind, and we need to be more ambitious in closing this gap. And despite the progress made on closing gender gap in work and education, gender inequalities remain norms around the world. Violence against women has yet to be properly addressed in any countries, and social, cultural, political, and economic barriers continue to hinder women participations in labor forces, politics, and humanitarian actions. While standing there present in leadership roles, assessment conducted by the United Nations Women in dozens of countries confirmed that COVID-19 has widened existing gap, resulting in a disproportionate loss of work and deepening poverty for women and girls, while increasing both gender-based violence and women unpaid domestic workloads. Change in the form of equality can no longer wait. Thank you. These are.
Sorry, Bob. Because we have a trouble following your speech, so the PowerPoint is not quite follow the sequence. But trying to be attached to your speech as much as we can. And we are very, at least myself, I feel very disappointed because of pandemic, all of the status number decline or the gap become even huger. So trying to narrow the gap, maybe we should take a helicopter. Anyway, we will have a bunch of questions to ask you later. We would like to pursue to next speaker, Director Jia Tian, 徐家田主任。Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. Thank you all. Good morning, good evening, and good day. Thank you all to keep company with us on this forum.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Xu Jiatian, the Director of Women Affairs Department of Democratic Progressive Party of Taiwan. And I would like to especially thank Ambassador Yang Huang and APLW's invitation to have the opportunity to present the challenges of gender equality in leadership and economic power in Taiwan's experiences. I will show you the numbers. Next slide, please. I will show you the numbers of gender development, including the dimensions of international comparisons, decision-making and influence, employment, economy, education, and housework and caring, to tell the current situations and challenges in Taiwan, and then present you the suggestions. The first, in dimension of international comparisons, the performance of Taiwan's gender equality is doing well. The United Nations Development Program began issuing the Gender Inequality Index, GII, in 2010. The GII measures the state of gender inequality in countries around the world by analyzing 5 indicators in 3 dimensions of health, empowerment, and the labor market. According to the GII calculation formula of UN, Taiwan ranked the 6th globally and the 1st in Asia in 2019. Next, let's see the Gender Gap Index, GGI. The World Economic Forum began publishing the GGI in 2006. The GGI measures the extent of gender baskets through 14 variables of 4 sub-indexes of economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. According to the GGI calculation formula of the World Economic Forum, Taiwan ranked the 38th globally in 2021 and down 9 places compared to 2020. Let's see the next slide. The dimension of decision-making and influence. Let's see the proportion of female legislators at first. You can see in this chart. In 2020, the proportion of Taiwan's female legislator was 41.6%, ranked the 80th globally and was higher than the other countries in Asia. In the meantime, according to the Inter-Parliamentary Union's latest report, the global proportion of female parliamentarians is 26.1% in 2021. Taiwan's proportion is much higher than the global proportion. And by the way, in 2016, Tsai Ing-wen was elected as Taiwan's president, who is the first female president in Taiwan, and she was elected president in 2020 with a very high number of votes. This means a lot for the women movement in Taiwan. And next, let's see the proportion of women's participation in central governmental sector. Except the cabinet members and the politically appointed officials, the participation of women in the central government sector mostly achieved the 1/3 gender role. The gap between men and women in national affairs in past 10 years has gradually narrowed. And next chart appears the proportion of women serving as local government head and elected representatives. Although the proportions have increased from 2014 to 2018, we still can see there is a gender gap from nation affairs to local affairs, and from big city to town, obviously. And what's the situation of the female decision-making in private sector? Next slide, please. Small and medium enterprises played important roles in Taiwan's economy. In 2020, 56,600 companies were headed by women, about 37%, and there was an increase of 20% from 2012. And let's see the next slide. Next, please. Oh, thank you. The chart shows the proportion of female directors at public companies increased slightly, and the gender gap remains at the decision-making level of public company. In the dimension of employment and economy. Next, please. Next, please. And in 2020, the proportion of female labor force participation in Taiwan is 51.4%, less than the other main industrial countries. And the next slide shows the development of the proportion of female labor force participation over the past 10 years. The proportion is increasing, and the gender gap is smaller. Furthermore, let's see the proportion by age. We can see in 2020, the highest rate was 90.5% among age 25 to 29. And after the peak, the participation steadily decreased. And after age 50, the female participation rapidly declined and was lower than the other major countries due to factor of marriage and pregnancy. So here we can see the traditional gender stereotypes still influence a lot. Men live outside and women live inside. Next, let's see the gender pay gap. In 2020, the average hourly wage of women was $294 NT, lower than the average of $345 NT for men, resulting a gender pay gap of 14.8%, and the gender pay gap has declined from 17% to about 15% over past 10 years. The gender pay gap in Taiwan is lower than Japan, Korea, American. And next, let's see the occupational gender segregation. The main factor of the gender pay gap is the occupational gender segregation. And in this chat, we realize that the occupational gender segregation prevalent. Men's occupation tend to craft and machine operation related works, and women's occupation tend to clerical support works, which is usually low-paid job. And in the dimension of education, the gender segregation still exists. In the chat, not only Taiwan, the gender segregation in higher education exists all over the world. More men are major in science and engineer. More women are major in education and arts and humanities. Next, let's see. Despite of the proportion of female graduates of higher education in Taiwan was increased, the number of female graduates at master's and doctoral levels still lag behind other major industry countries. Finally, I want to show you how much time that men and women spend on housework and caring. In this table, we find out that even working women spend 3 times as much time as men on housework and caring in 2016. You can see it on the table. Yes, so we can say that working women have 2 jobs, 1 in day in the office and 1 in night in the family. The traditional gender stereotypes still have a big impact in Taiwan. The main caregivers in family are women, even they have a job. In the conclusion, the current situation and challenges in Taiwan are 50 years after the women movement. The development of Taiwan's gender equality has been progressive a lot, but compared to some countries, we still have much room to improvement. Second, traditional gender stereotypes still ingrained in Taiwan. In culture, men live outside, female lives inside. In education, male are major in science and engineering. Female are major in education and arts and humanities. And in employment, men craft and machine operation related works. Female clerical support works. And the third, there are gaps in the development of gender equality, from the central to the local, from the city to the countryside, from the government sector to the private sector, and from the big company to the smaller enterprise. So what we can do, in my opinion of view, there is something that the government can do. Continue to take root in gender education and change the traditional culture, and increase the proportion of women in decision-making at all levels through regulations, assessments, and rewards. Cooperate with the civil, women, and gender organizations. And the women and the gender NGOs are always stand on the progressive side and push the government move forward. So do more conversations and do more cooperations with NGOs. In addition to strengthening the Only for Women project, the next stage should promote the God teammate. In Taiwan, we say 神队友 project to let men take on more caring responsibilities. The regulations of parental leave allowance, and paternity leaves were relaxed and increased to let men take their responsibility for caring. In the future, this might be a good direction for effort. And thank you for paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Xu. I'm so happy to see Taiwan has a lot of progress were made in the past that to shorten smaller the gender gap. And there's good questions I'd like to ask you later, but just now we would like to welcome our last but not the least, our younger generation female advocate, Xuanru Wang. I will hand over the microphone to Xuanru. Thank you.
Hello, people. Can you hear me? Okay, so just let's start our oh, I shared the error screen. Wait for a minute.
It's loading now. Okay.
Okay. So it's really my big pleasure to be here to share my experience with you. And I'm Virginia. You can call me Virginia in English, actually. And today I'm very pleasure and I'm really glad to be here and to attend this forum. And I want to share about the spirit of action speaks louder than words in the age of 17. And I'm now a junior in the Department of Interior Design. And I'm also the proposer of the phasing out the disposable tableware, the use of disposable tableware in Taiwan. And based on this social participation experience, I also invited into this Open Government National Action Plan Task Force member, so I can just, which means I can have a chair, I can sit into the executive yuan, 行政院. I can just sit there and just observe how people talk about the policy and they can share different opinion there. So this is very cool. And I also, as the moderator mentioned, I'm also a runway model. So I got very different work experience here. So I think I'm really there to be different and like a lot of challenges in my life. So today I'm going to talk about first, it's about experience, raise out my ideas, just like speak out my voice when I don't have any voting rights at the age of 17. So as you can see on the screen, there's a QR code. If you are really interested in this website, you can just scan the QR code only on here. Yeah. So when it was 2017, and I just raised this idea, phasing out the use of disposable tableware back to then. It was just begin with a very, very simple and normal high school homework. Yeah, our our teacher of social studies, they want us to be participate in our society. So she handed this homework to us and tell us to raise an idea or just agree with others' idea on this website. So back to then, I was thinking about how I really got some problems on environmental issue, just like trash. We have a very, very great culture about the night market, but the trash issue it brings out is really need to be solved. So I just, based on the daily observation, I think this is a problem. And so I just initiate this onto the website. And then I don't know somehow, but there's 5,253 people really agree with my ideas. So it really it's really surprised, but after all, I just attend into a conference that I could discuss this about my idea to the Environmental Protection Ministry and also Health and Welfare Affair, just some government, and also most important of all, I can talk with the manufacturer of disposable tableware. So back to the conference, I want to share the situation in the conference. There's a lot of people really agree with my idea. They are all, eco-friendly. But there's another people, they need to protect their benefit from the industry, this plastic industry. So we have different opinion on the same thing. And also there's government there. So this is just like a triangle. We got different kind of opinion toward the same thing, and we need to discuss how to balance and how to, everyone can agree. I don't know how to say, but we have to both, where you can say everyone need to agree with this idea. It's really a little bit difficult to discuss, but there's one thing you really impressed me until now. One of the manufacturer of the disposable tableware, they said, they just stare at me and say, there's a lot of things is disposable, which is just like, how to say, the pad, the sanitary pad, sanitary napkin, which is women use on the period. It is also disposable. So why you just take disposable tableware into discussion? So I was really shocked by his question, but I think this is a really issue we need to solve. So I'm really confused about why a man of industry of the plastic manufacturer have to ask this kind of question. So it's really impolite, right? So, however, now in Taiwan, in 2019, Taiwan's government have decided to promote this issue and do this policy in 2019 to 2030. And I will show you a picture next. Okay. So based on, just like I said, based on this experience, now I'm here. I can got some chance to observing the government just operating. Yeah. And you might be very curious about why I just think about the idea of phasing out the use of disposable tableware based on this two documentary. One of them is Beyond Beauty, which was shooted by Chi Boiling Foundation in Taiwan. They really discuss about the beauty and the ugly side of Taiwan's amazing view in Taiwan. And another one is Before Flood. It was taken by two persons. One of them is Leonardo DiCaprio, and another one is, let me check out the name, sorry, Fisher Stevens. And I want to share a little clip on this. Okay, so first of all, you can see very beautiful thing, and in another way to check out the very beautiful view in Taiwan. So this is very, very amazing and impressed. So I think we need to protect the environment like this. And another one is this one. When I was 16, I sit in front of the living room from the TV. I watched this with my parents and my family, and they talk about different climate change in the USA and also some little island on the Pacific Ocean. So the sea is really shocked. As you can see, the ice is really melting and the polar bear have no place to live. This is really the problem we need to face right now. So back to Taiwan, I know there's a lot of trash issue, and that's the reason I really want to improve this issue and let more people to notice this issue. Okay. And now in Taiwan, as I just said, there are some policy now, so we can't use like plastic bag, disposable tableware, and plastic cup and plastic straw now. From reduce to forbid. And now more young people in Taiwan, they are really interested in, speak out for their voice, just like they don't like the education policy. So they also use the joint platform, just like what I use, to deliver their thoughts when we don't have the right to vote. Even now, this picture I took last year. I went to a night market with my friends. We still have some, disposable tableware here, like plastic straw and plastic box. But now in Taiwan, more and more people use this kind of cup, a reusable cup, and some food bag, which you can clean it and use it regularly in here. So everyone really, really can protect the environment from our daily life. And once we are use this reusable things, but the truth is that there's still a lot of plastic products are producing because of the food delivery service is really very hot here. So the usage is still rising. I have to say, this is the truth. It is from 2009 to 2019. It actually is, increasing. Yeah. So we have to discuss how to face this problem in the future as well. So this is a metro station in our daily life. We need to take action, but how can girls and women or just human beings, observe the environment? I think it's very precious that we got an eye to see. This is the picture I took last November. I went to Lüdao, and under the sea, you can see the sea turtle here. And this is my very first experience to face to face to the creature in the under the water. So I'm really surprised, and I found that we have to have the empathy to different kind of things. The under the sea is really beautiful, The creature, the fish is just around you, and the coral reef is really beautiful. And we need to know that even though you haven't been, scuba diving, but once you have the chance, you need to see in person to different kind of creatures of their living environment. Then we will want to protect this more, just like this. Okay. So now I'm Kingman. Last day, I just want to share with you very much is that I take my first flight in my life. This is my very first time to take a plane. And I know it's really normal. Maybe it's normal to you, but it's really a cool experience to me. Above the sky, I really think the scene there was very, very beautiful. This is an environment we need to very concerned about. So as a girl, there's a cone cell and a rod cell in our eyes. And women are really good at, separate the color. So we can make more observation in our daily life. And we got our empathy to different kind of thing, different kind of opinion. That's our advantage, I think. So no matter what age we are now or what kind of gender we are now, we can do something to the earth. as Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see in the world. That's what I want to say too. This I can't agree with anymore. So once you can remember everything I said today, just remember, turn our passion into our driving force in our living. Thank you. And if you want to contact, this is my message, my contact information. Thank you again about today's invitation to invite me here to share my experience and my thoughts here. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. You truly give us a very good case study on the way how you pursue your goal. And I truly wish I'm this age, your young age, so I can do more. And we can tell the hope in the younger generation only when we have the belief and the dream, so we can always take the action and pursue it. Okay, so now it's our Q&A section. I wonder if any of our audience or participants has any questions, can send the questions on our chat room. I think I have seen one. Sorry, 老花眼. Why don't I start it, because I would digest the question first. It's a long one. I want to start it with Virginia, our young lady who has goal and dream to pursue. You seem to have first step on your age 17 to reach out to the government and call the government attentions to care for the tableware waste. So what's your idea or any goal or dream you would like to pursue to smaller or shorten the gender gap? Your microphone is now on.
I think to shorten the gender gap is, it's not a very difficult thing, I think, because in my status, I think that me and my classmates in our, how to say, young people generation, I don't know how to express it precisely, but I think in my opinion, it's really need to discuss, when everyone can stay here. When people say discussion, some people are still have their own mind, they still got their own opinion. So they are not so that easy to discuss or talk over with. But when the time we don't see it take us in such a very high status, we can really talk with others and observing, or you can say, observe others' ideas. That's the time we can shorter our gender gap, I think.
Good. Next, I would like to ask the questions for our audience to President of the East-West Center. Suzanne, are you still online? Okay, great. It seems like during your presentation, especially in military and in Hawaii, as we all know, Hawaii has a lot of people, different, like Taiwan, we have different races, and it's a melting pot. And in military or in the East-West Center, it took 50 years to have a female president. So I would like to ask you, what do you think the key obstacles and biggest challenges for the gender equality in Hawaii or to the rest of the world? We'd like to have your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is a wonderful question. If I look at myself and others who have many of the amazing women on this panel.
You need to be closer to your microphone.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me now? Is that good?
Yes, better.
Okay. When I look back at, the obstacles, I would say, of course, are perceptions in media and in school on how people view the role of women. Oftentimes, people have been very surprised to see me in leadership roles, even when I was in the service. And, you know, of course, people are highlighting the fact I've been in a lot of newspapers about me being the first woman East-West Center president, and it was established in 1960. So it's actually 62 years since we've not had a woman president. And I think those obstacles are, there are a couple books called Good Guys. You know, the ones who have power are often men. So if men in those roles don't see themselves as mentors to all people, all possible talent, which includes men and women, that can be an obstacle. Because as I mentioned in the picture you saw, I really don't believe I would have had the opportunities if it were not for those male leaders who were in the positions to make those decisions and actually provide me an opportunity to show that I could do the job. So, you know, it is through education, through understanding. There's a book called Good Guys, written by the Naval War College professors, Smith, and I forgot the other last name, but it's called Good Guys. And another one is called Raising Athena. So why men should mentor women and how men can be allies in the workplace. That not to see them as competition, but as opportunity. And you really cannot have a scarcity mindset, because this question about, you know, seeing women as competition, the potential of you taking away my job, rather than looking at it as it's an opportunity to bring in the best talent when we take in consideration the entire population and not just 50% of the population. It's David Smith and Brad Johnson is the author of Good Guys, for those of you who'd like to check it out. It's actually written for men.
Thank you. Well, we certainly appreciate your answers. Since you mentioned, I just digest these long questions. I think this is related, okay? This audience asked the questions. I think she wonder how speakers think about the anti-feminist trend in young men, which considers men being reversely administrated by feminists by setting quotes in job, occupations, and political sectors. What do you think? Since this major issue being raised in the recent South Korean president election, I wonder if there is such a trend in the Asian countries where the speakers are from as well. How are we gonna, you know, mitigate this backslash? Yeah. Can we receive the answers from our distinguished speaker? Saripa, you're still online, right? We see your PowerPoint and presentation. Sees status was really not too good in Asia among all of other Asian countries. So what do you think about these questions, the challenge?
I think it is one of the challenge that we face today. But as of Thailand, there are we also raise the same. We also have the same issue, but it's not really a trend by young men, but it's more like a question asked by the younger generations. If the quotas and if the quota system actually discriminated other genders as well. So they are actually stated in the Thai constitution saying that there must be equal among men and women as of Thai constitution. And basically when we draft every law, there are considerations that in a committee that we have, there must be equals among numbers of men and women. But when it's come to the actuals of what happened, it's actually because with the trends nowadays, we also raise an issue saying that it's not just about men and women, it's about equals of all genders. And also we are talking about LGBTQ as well. that we are considered in the having an equal amount. But I totally understand that the point that Su Huanlin raised, that young men have a think about the anti-feminist trend. That's also happened in Thailand, but it's not by the young men, but it's by the society as a whole, saying that the questioning the quota system as well. But in general, I think we say that it's very open and equal to all genders, not just men and women. I'm not sure if I explained it right.
Yes, thank you for your answer. We definitely would not like to see this anti-feminist so-called as a trend, because we still have a huge gender gap to make it shorter or smaller. How could we go for this kind of backlash on gender equality? Yeah.
Josephine?
Tatian, do you have any improvement
Yes.
opinion to say? Thank you.
About the situation in Korea, it's a little pity, but in my observation in Taiwan, the anti-gender equal is not so serious. But we do find out some development online, especially internet gender imbalance. The gender imbalance online is getting serious in Taiwan. So, including the NGOs and the government, discussion how to prevent the gender imbalance, to protect more women and young women, especially, to keep away from the violent type. So I just want to say, in Taiwan, the anti-gender inequality is not so serious, but the development of violence in internet, we should go through to let. We should see the situation to take some action for that.
Who else would like to comment on this same topic? Okay. We have Jia previously sent us a lot of good status numbers on Taiwan's gender equality improvements. So my question to Jia is, Taiwan elected the first female president 2016. Obviously, this is important. It is important for the promotion of a woman's leadership in political and economic decision making. But for your observations, do you believe that there is more opportunity and fairer treatment for women than in the past when a male president was in power?
Thank you.
No voice. No voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Microphone is not on.
Is it? Can you hear me?
Now I hear.
Can you start over? Yeah, thank you.
I have to say, truly, the number of female cabinet members is still low. We have much room to improvement this situation. But in other hand, I want to share some female leaders in Taiwan. We can see, starting from 2020, because of the COVID-19, a lot of the government want to to serve, to protect their people. And the magazine Forbes magazine published an article titled, "What do countries with the best COVID-19 response have in common?" And the answer is women leaders. And in the article, lists a number of national female leaders who have performed well in prevention, including Germany, Iceland, and New Zealand, and Taiwan. So many people find out that there are some difference between men and female leaders, because female leaders are being more confirmed to resistance, and because women are good at communication and listening, are more empathy, and value teamwork, and are more competent and self-centered than men. So female leaders tend to make better decisions, especially in country decisions. So I just want to say, in Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen, the president of Taiwan, played a good job in these few years, in past years. Especially, we can see during the COVID-19 period, she shows the competency, she shows the efficiency, he shows the how to go fast to respond to COVID-19. So, and she keep the team to go with her. So we want to say, sorry, my English is not so influenced, but I just want to say, a female president is very important in Taiwan. Especially, we see the female president can play a very good role to lead the country development, no matter in economic, in the social welfare, in the caring of the elders. Especially Tsai Ing-wen do good in the international association to let Taiwan can keep to be good friends of American and Japan and etc. So not just in Taiwan, the female president and the female leadership in all over the world still play the good roles in everywhere. That's my opinion.
But it seems like still a huge space to go into. As far as I know, year 2000, when President Chen Shui-bian was elected, he cared about gender equality a lot, trying to improve the image. So he promoted a lot of male government important positions in his cabinet. So we know now the rate is not as high as the past. That's why I asked the questions. Your answer was being very modest. Anyway, okay, so now we have the audience, Wai and Sue. Would you like to turn on your microphone and pass on your question? Wai and Sue, are you ready? If not, you can type, I saw you raise your electronic hand. If it's not ready or you want to type your questions on the chat room. Okay, during our presentation, we also heard and see the solid status. During the COVID-19, women, especially professional woman, career woman, the workload actually is double or triple, because not only you need to work from home, your husband work from home, and your children are home because school is closed. So all this working flow, women really need backup policies from whatever assisting group or government's policy to do the support. So can anyone here answer the questions? Any suggestions? This is a part of one of our foreign topic. Besides trying to shorten the gender gap, if women can reduce some more time for doing caring or domestic work, then they can explore their talents on their career, on economic or on political decision side. So, President Susan, you have any answer to this? Have you ever experienced this kind of difficulty when you were kind of torn between housework and office work or in the military service? Do you often have enough backup system to support you? Susan, are you still there? 看不到她了。Maybe Sariban, would you like to answer the question for us?
The support for
Yes.
I was thinking about this as well, that women have to face a lot more responsible. I'm not saying that men have less responsibilities, but women also have to take care of the household and I think that one of the main thing that helps women to step outside their boxes is the family support. That is something that within the family, but at the same time at the policy levels, I think that there have to be a policy that help encourage women to also step outside the boxes and allow them to do more. For example, even the children's center at workplace also make a difference for women to actually able to step outside and to step outside their boxes and allowing themselves to spend more time on their work as well. So I think those are the kind of policy that need to be pushed forward by the government as well.
Definitely. So career women can focus on their career, on their work. Susan, are you still there? Do you experience the same difficulty torn between your military service or in your office, between your office and housework? Do you think any policy to be made would be solve this kind of problem, overburdening the woman's work? Maybe she is not available at this moment. Okay, now back to the audience. There's Lin Manyu raised the electronic hand.
Yes.
Lin Jiao, thank you.
Okay. Yes, this is Anya Lin from the Society of Taiwan Women in Science and Technology, and I'm also the Director of Pharmacy in National Jiao Tong Yanmin University. Okay, actually, in our society, we have focused on the gender equality in the STEM pipeline. STEM pipeline is a very important issue because the leakage in STM pipeline is a global issue. So it's not only in our country, but also in many countries. When I did a research on the gender inequality in this STM pipeline, I found that many international companies, they provide DEI reports every year. Okay, so such as Micron, IBM, or even Pfizer. So we can tell that they have done important improvement, such as promotion of a senior woman vice president or senior woman leader in their company. But I cannot, or I hardly can find any DI report in our country. Okay, so I think it is important to provide the DI data that we can speak on the evidence-based. Okay, so it is important that we encourage our industry to provide us the DI data inclusion that we can know the progress of the gender equality in this company or in many companies in our country, and then we can know that what we should do in the next. So I think it is important to ask the industry to provide DEI report yearly. Thank you.
Professor Lin, your question addressed to which speaker or to all our speakers?
I think to the economic aspects.
So the Saripa, the Thai from Thailand, right? The speaker from Thailand. Saripa, would you like to answer this question, please?
Josephine, if you could repeat the questions again, I'm sorry.
Actually, it's not a question, it's a comment that what our country should do. I mean, in our country, we don't have the DEI report. That DEI stands for diversity, equality, and inclusion. Okay, in our country, our industry did not provide DEI report as those as the international companies such as Micron, Meiguang, IBM, or Pfizer. Since we lack of the DEI data from our country, then we don't know what they have done or what they didn't do for the gender equality. Okay, so I think we should encourage our country and we should encourage our industry in our country to provide DEI data. Okay, so from the DEI report from the Micron, they actually show us the percentage of the senior vice president yearly. So they have increased number of the promotion of the senior vice president, female vice president, or even female senior leaders. Okay, so then we will know they have tried to promote gender equality. But since in our country, we cannot find this DEI report, then we don't know what they did or what they did not do to promote gender equality in our industry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lin. I was not too familiar with the abbreviation, okay? DI, we're trying to guess what is DI. Thank you for your explanation. Diversity Identity Report, is that correct?
Diversity, equality, and inclusion. Okay. And inclusion report.
Okay, it's a very good comment. We received that. And since this forum will be on the YouTube, and I believe our government later would have the chance to review all of these different comments and very valuable suggestions. Okay, there is another audience who also raised her hand. YM Sue, calling your name again. Would you like to raise up your question now? We can pass microphone to you. Are you still online? YM Sue. Huh? Yeah. Okay, we'll give you one more call. If you're not speak out or turn on your microphone, I'm gonna jump over to the next questions. Okay. Another question is to Director Jatian. In your leading role as the ruling party's Director of Department of Women's Affairs, what do you see the most pressing pressing challenges and difficulties of the current environment in Taiwan, of course.
Thank you for the question about the challenging and difficulties of Taiwan's gender equality. Okay. As the slice of mine says, I think even after the 50 years of Taiwan's movement, the Taiwan's gender equality is gradually, stably increasing, but there's still much we have to do in the future or now. No matter the education or the law, the regulations, or to change the culture, or to set up the organization more in Taiwan, we still have much to do. Just like I think the biggest challenge, the most difficult challenge is the stereotype culture, the culture of stereotype. As I present, there are a lot of framework, a lot of stereotype in Taiwan, just like men live outside and women live inside. And this kind of stereotype often let the women, even the women wants to do more, to do more participation, to join the society, to go to work, but they cannot because they have to care about the family. They have to do all the housework. They have to do the caring of the elder, of the children, of their husband. So if we want to change more in Taiwan, I think the most important is to change the culture stereotype, the traditional culture. If the stereo culture, the traditional culture can change, I think the gender pay gap, the occupational segregation, and female labor force participation will increase more. Or we still can see the glass ceiling on the sky on all levels in Taiwan. So I still think the most important is to do more to change the culture, traditional culture in Taiwan.
Yes, I think you're right. The glass ceiling is most horrible. It seems like not being seen, but it's there. Okay, that really limited a lot of things. Okay, there is another audience has a questions. Yeah. Following up the issue about gender violence online, how do you create a safe environment for women to feel secure, to express themselves and speak up as society has had a negative view on people advocating for feminism and gender equality? Yeah. Susan, can you answer this question for us?
Yes, absolutely. I'll get closer. Gender-based violence is something that is key part of security and stability and prosperity of any location. you know, even in conflict and crisis and day to day, people don't realize that where those societies where there are more protections for women and gender-based violence, those countries are economically and much more prosperous. So, you know, even to the point of the other competition where men see feminism as a threat, instead of seeing it as it actually helps, they have to understand that it impacts their bottom line. So when women feel safe and they are protected, and there are and children as well, those societies thrive. You don't, like, you saw some of the wonderful statistics that were shown. Those most the societies where women are doing well, they have those protections, those policies that protect them. Now, gender-based violence in domestic as well as during conflict have different impacts, long-term impacts. I'd like to just quickly address also gender-based violence in conflict. If we don't think gender-based violence in conflict has long-term consequences, we need to just look at how relations, international relations, are impacted by gender-based violence that happened during World War II. All you need to do is try to sit in a trilateral dialogue and find out what comes up. And I find it interesting that in the Republic of Korea, where you know, you hear this rise by some trends of some young men forgetting that the very saber rattling about you know, the gender-based violence that happened during World War II is something that they bring up, but it's not the women who are at the table to discuss solutions to that gender-based violence, broken trust from decades ago. It's men who are at the table. And is that really who we want to talk about solutions for gender-based violence? We also need women's voices at the table to talk about solutions. We need men also standing up, a call, and not turning a blind eye to gender-based violence during crisis and conflict, and during everyday activities, that they need to speak out that there is no tolerance for it. And you need male advocates. And I'm going to repeat that book again, that Good Guys, Men Being Allies in the Workplace. It makes the case as to why we need to have their voices heard as well. Again, it is not just a woman's issue, it's a human issue. So thank you.
Thank you. I definitely will find the book guide to read after this forum. And I think you're very right on a lot of points, this issue, which is often, I think, if the man has enough confidence in themselves, it never would take women's capability and talents as a threat, right? And especially when men usually enjoy women's service, especially housewives provide a hot meal on the table, nursery the kids, or the kids. I have 3 boys. I think I'm gonna get the book and then make sure they all read that book. So we will have more male to support female, and that's exactly our INLWA's slogan, he for she. So we will have better gender equality situation and shorten the gap. And Susan, would you like to answer the question that I pass on to you, which probably you were not available at the time? I know you're busy. Yeah, that was during your military life. There must be time that you need to turn between the housework or the career or office work, you know, when you don't have enough support. You know, in Taiwan, a lot of career women, they need to work both, you know, daytime in the office and go home, take care of the elderlies, you know, little children. And during COVID-19, the workflow is even worse because husband working from home, kids are all home. That's previous questions that we'll pass on to you. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. That has been talked about quite often.
Come closer.
So my husband has also served in the military, but we have a good partnership. And I think it's important to have that family network and a partner who's willing to help you. And I think that's a cultural shift as well, that men taking on some of those responsibilities. So we have a senior fellow at the East-West Center who has done a lot of research. She's a professor at UC Berkeley and also name is Gretchen, and she has documented women's work and looked at how much money is saved by women's work. So who takes on a lot of women's work? Now, in the United States, it's actually probably one of the better numbers where men take some of the non-paid work. So considered it non-paid work that must be done. And if you had to pay someone for it, it would be worth a lot of money. You know, the housework, taking care of elderly. Oh yes, thank you so much, Sue, for putting good guys. But I'll also put in here some of Gretchen's work, because it is telling that it's necessary work for society, and yet it doesn't have the same acknowledgement of how important it is. And men, to have a household that works well, for me, my husband he's a great cook and he always helps, and we help the duties, and it really makes it for a happy home when both help each other with aging parents and children. And I have 2 girls, and now they're in college age, but you know, when they were young, I was deployed to Iraq for 18 months. So oftentimes when you have dual military, you've got to have a good family support system that helps you.
But how about the government policy to support?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Government policy, there has to be, so in the military, we have wonderful family support, family care systems from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening. Daycare provided, even infant daycare. Lots of family programs that help for a lot of our military who their parents are not nearby. That really is helpful. So you have to have the US military, like many places like New Zealand and Australia, are actually creating opportunities for women when they have young children. They can take leave for about 2 years and then come back without losing their position as an officer by competing with their same year group. You can actually move up back to the other year group and compete. So you're not losing time in competition. And this is a model that Australia and New Zealand have used. And in the US, we saw the Department of the Air Force and some of the other services that are allowing them to do that. So policies in place to make sure we capture the good talent that we have by providing the safety networks for raising a family.
The reason I follow up this question is when I have maternity leave, I came back to my public television, I was raised second-rate performance. So that is a very good government policy in Australia and New Zealand that you were talking about. Good. I saw our President Mei Xin raise up the hand. Would you like to turn on your speaker? Because we're running out of the time for today's forum. We'd like to have you talk to us. And Mei Xin, are you ready? Turn on your microphone. Ambassador Yang. Can you click your microphone to turn it on? She raised her hand earlier. Still no sound. We cannot turn it on for you. Can you turn off by yourself? Okay. Thank you, Susan, providing the book about the good guys. And now here on the chat room, the project website for Counting Women's Work for all our participants' reference. If you're interested, you can get onto the chat room and see it or download it. Yeah. Can you solve the microphone problem? It's okay now. Since we have heard technical problems and the time's up for today, I would like to make a closing remark for the forum. You know, every year, March 8th, International Women's Day, make all our, excellent career women or wife, we will have a chance to work for our gender equality. And we're very happy to see many, we have over 70 or 80 online today, in and out. And so we are also very grateful to have our 4 very distinguished speakers for today and give us a lot of insightful presentation. Thank you all very much. And thank you for our audience from the beginning to the end. So I would like to wrap up, and please turn on your camera. We would like to have a group, photos. If you can turn on the camera, at least we can create a record for this year for CSW 66. We're all here for women's rights and the gender equality. We're trying to make the world better with peace. Okay, our technical supporting group is taking the photos. So stay, just smile.
Thank you very much, Josephine.
Oh, finally you're back. You want to say something, Ambassador Yang?
I think it's very important. I think our women's movement for equality, we need the men to support. People see it's very important. Not only we talk within our group, so we should encourage the men to join our group. And really, all the speakers are so good. I got a lot of knowledge, and thank you so much, all the participants, all the speakers. Thank you so much. Want to see you soon.
Thank you. We wave our hand, and we were looking forward to see you next year. If the pandemic, the restriction, the removed, then we can all travel to New York, to UN, join and see each other face to face. Thank you very much today.
Thank you, Justin.
I'll see you in Hawaii, Suzanne. Thank you for your time.